Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
I go about 3:05 these days, give or take a couple pieces of cornbread.
Joe Giammatteo.
Now, I don't want to alarm anybody, but it looked like his whole face was caved in.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one pay-per-view at a time. That's right, folks. This is a special pay-per-view episode, so pay-per-view stipulations are in effect. We're going to be giving our star ratings. Joe's going to be giving us Meltzer's star ratings. We're going to talk about whether or not we got our money's worth. It's going to be a great time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about In Your House 20, No Way Out of Texas. And this pay-per-view aired on February 15th, 1998, and was recorded at the Compaq Center in Houston, Texas, and features Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I am ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. Once again, trying to find this pay-per-view on the cock was one of the stupidest experiences I've ever had.
Now it's officially into the named
Yes.
pay-per-views. No more searching for In Your House.
I went to In Your House first and couldn't find it.
Go fuck yourself is what Peacock said.
For our listeners, this is the one and only episode of Season 1 of No Way Out. So search No Way Out, and once you go past Oppenheimer.
I ended up watching Oppenheimer again.
3 hours and 5 minutes later.
I think we've all seen it like 7 times now. But once you get past all of that bullshit and actually get going into this, the opening video package to this was great. It had movie voice guy laying down some awesome lines. My favorite was in reference to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He would just as soon spit in the devil's eye as shake his maker's hand.
It was great. I actually liked the line before that. Some challenge the boundaries of their physical limits, sacrifice their bodies, mortgage their youth. It was just so great.
There was mention of athletes, adversaries, even fucking nihilists, man. It was great. And what a great view of the sold-out crowd we got. It was nice to see every seat filled. It really helps with the feeling that we're progressing to a truly amazing era. It's one of those small things that doesn't always get talked about, but these shows, both on Raw, these pay-per-views, they're really starting to develop an atmosphere of their own that is kind of unique to the Attitude Era.
Where was this show again?
The Compaq Center in Houston, Texas.
Texas, okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure.
Yeah, just in case you were wondering.
Okay.
Another great view was good old JR and Jerry the King Lawler. I would hope the only commentary tonight, and as much as I don't remember this pay-per-view at all or what happened in it, just seeing those two guys alone gave me hope that this was going to be a good time. So, we quickly went into our first match of the night. The Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, defeat the artist formerly known as Goldust and Mark Marrow with Luna and Sable respectively by pinfall in 13 minutes and 54 seconds. I loved Marrow at the start of this. He was high energy. He was really healing it up. I'm still enjoying Marrow so far. We got Marrow Lynn Dust for this match, the current ongoing identity of Goldust, I guess you could call it. That was good to see, but not to hear. That Beautiful People knockoff is just still so fucking terrible. Luna was great here, too. I loved Marrow telling Sable to get the hell out of here. That's always good to hear. And comparatively few people gave a shit when the Headbangers came out. It was a little saddening, honestly. The former tag champs, not too much of a crowd pop for them. People were more interested in hating Goldust and Marrow than cheering for the Headbangers, but maybe that's what they're going for. I love JR referring to the unorthodox style of the Headbangers. Just whenever he says anybody has an unorthodox style, I like to think that he's being a little snarky with that. JR was very straight in this. And by that, I mean he had almost like a Frank Gifford or Howard Cosell type delivery to the play call during some of the slower exchanges in this match, and I really enjoyed that. I especially enjoyed JR's smooth transition from putting over Western Union to putting over the Headbangers. It was like butter. It was fantastic. At some point, Thrasher got color. I couldn't tell you what caused it because the action in the ring was serviceable. There was nothing notably bad, but for me at least, the real superstars here during this match were commentary. I did love Mero telling the ref to check the bleeding Thrasher as a distraction to unwrap his wrist tape. That was both clever and believable. That's a good kind of ref distraction. Any interest I did have in this, though, fell apart, though, when Sable came back out. And that's not my normal Sable bashing. It's that she had no reason to come out. She came out...
No business being out there.
Just to start shit.
She's hot.
Things were going very well without her, and then she ruined it. This finish was about as deep as Sable's acting ability, and the actual finish was the Headbangers switching out in the ring while the ref was distracted by this catfight on the outside. That didn't actually happen, by the way. Nobody actually touched each other there. Things were even worse after. I guess Sable wants Luna, and that's what started all of this. Once Goldust carried Luna out, Sable actually shoved Mero, and Mero actually bumped for her. And of course they replayed it, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, that is the first in a death of 1,000 cuts.
Yep.
So I was ready to do 2 stars on this match just because of commentary, but that finish put it right back down to 1. The purest neutral of ratings. Joe, what did you think of our show opener here?
Well, Thrasher got a nice little thrash on his head there during this match. I think it was him.
Yeah.
He got busted open there or bladed or whatever it is. And it seemed like they were being overly cautious with him after he did that. So I feel like that kind of hurt the match a little bit. I do enjoy the flapjack move that the Headbangers do. I think it's a great tag team move. But outside of that, this match wasn't really great, but this crowd was super hot for this, mainly because of Wendy Whoppers.
Let's crush some cans.
Yeah.
Busty Heart, yeah.
Yeah, Luna and Busty, that whole feud there just seems so fake and phony. And it's like they're trying to do the Ken Shamrock snapping gimmick, but with Sable, and it just doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah. Nobody gives a fuck about that.
That voice is the voice of a heel. That is not a babyface voice. Yeah, this match did nothing for me, but again, this crowd was really hot for it, and I think that kind of helped my viewing of it, I guess, so I did give it 2 stars.
Yeah, I didn't hate this match. And, seeing Goldust come out as Marilyn Dust and Luna, whatever the fuck she is, but they both look good and they're playing that role perfectly. And I do still enjoy Mero and how he treats Sable here. He says there's only room for one beautiful lady, so she has to get out. Wow. What a way to cut her down. The match itself was nothing special. It's a pay-per-view match, and it just really didn't feel like that. And I understand this is a tweener pay-per-view. It's not one of the major ones, so I suppose they feel they can give us a mediocre match like this for that. But it didn't do anything to get me too excited. I did enjoy the King bringing up the band Pantera, not to be confused with the other Pantera we'll see later in the night, but always cool to hear the King reference either White Zombie or Pantera. But Thrasher getting a little bit of color, I think that must have been an accident, because I agree it looked like everyone backed off after that, and the mode of the match switched to a slower, more protective style. So I don't know if that was supposed to happen, but I did enjoy Mero throwing a hissy fit about all the blood on his hands, screaming, it's blood.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool, but the match just serviceable. You said the correct word words here. It's serviceable. The crowd, now, they loved it. They loved everything about this. Sable comes down. They're cheering her. The thing I'm a little worried about is the shove that Sable gives to Luna. I feel like we're going to be getting Sable wrestling very soon, and the crowd wants it, but I don't know if they're going to enjoy it once they get their wish. And then Mark, it's the beginning of the end when he sells for this shove and just goes ass over tin cups for this powerful woman, Sable. The crowd loved it, but I'm not sure I did. The action being serviceable, I was juggling between a 1 and a 2 star, but I did end up going with a 2 star. I guess I was being a little generous.
Yeah, and just so I'm clear here, are we going to be referring to these as tweener pay-per-views? Because I'm not sure how I feel about that.
That's what I referred to. You can call it whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, this one for sure.
What did Meltzer think of this?
He gave it a 1.5 star rating and said the match was okay.
Yeah.
All right, well,
yeah.
Cut us down the middle. I'll take it. All right, next up, backstage, Michael Cole was with Owen Hart, asking how they're going to coexist in the match later, Owen and Stone Cold. Owen did a great job, but there was a ton of background noise that just really shouldn't have been there, and I don't know, it just wasn't that great of a segment. It almost felt like production was burying Owen Hart. It was their turn in line to just fuck up something that Owen was doing.
Hart's never to be buried.
So, Sunny was out to the ring next. She was looking fucking amazing.
Ooh, in pink again.
As guest announcer for our next match. Taka Michinoku defeats Pantera by pinfall in 10 minutes and 11 seconds to retain the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship. We didn't escape Jerry's Kid with this. Brian Christopher came down to join commentary, so we started at a dud for me, and neither Pantera and his kitty cat outfit nor commentary's blatant racism were enough to bring this back, and that's it. Ryan, what'd you think of this match?
Yeah, this wasn't very great. There's really no other way to put it. And to highlight that fact, they start off showing us footage from last week's Monday Night Raw, the foreign object that Pantera used. And I'm questioning myself as to why you would ever zoom in and give. At this point, you got to see it wasn't brass knuckles. It was like paper towels wrapped in tinfoil or something. Like, why would you go out of your way to show us how terrible this thing looked? That just blew my mind that they would take time out of a pay-per-view match to highlight, here's this shitty gimmicked fake brass knucks that we used in the last match. And that continued the disappointment through this entire match, other than getting to see Sunny. She gave that smooch to Taka to get his blood flowing for the match, and that was probably the best part of the match.
Yeah.
Brian Christopher on commentary, that was shit because you knew we were going to get the father-son talk, which of course we did. And this was a huge spot fest, like we would expect. Again, I thought that Pantera looked like an elderly wrestler here, so I had to look it up, and he was 34 at this point, so not an old wrestler, not very old at all, and I saw he is still wrestling currently at the age of 60 in the same black and white Zoobly Zoo fucking costume, so he hasn't changed a thing.
Ooh.
This match, though, was pretty damn boring, and to be honest, I don't think it did Taka any favors. It was him getting his ass kicked for like 12 minutes, and then he finally pulls a Michinoku driver out at the end to pull out the victory, but I thought he came away looking pretty damn weak.
Yeah.
And I couldn't give this anything more than a 1 star.
Oof.
Well, yeah, I'm with you, Bartlett. As soon as Jerry's Kid joined commentary, I had it in the dud status, and it did not move for me. I just thought this sucked again, because every Taka match has basically been a spot fest and getting all the shit in, brother.
Yeah.
And it's a dud. So, yeah, I'm really disappointed in this, that we had Christopher on commentary, but he didn't interfere in the match. There were no shenanigans. He wanted to, and they stopped him. And then didn't he take some dive from Taka or some shit? I don't know. Who cares?
Some bullshit.
After the bell.
Yeah. This was terrible.
Yeah, Meltzer loved it, I'm sure.
Well, he gave it 2.25 stars.
Of course.
But he did say they seemed to be rushing from spot to spot.
That sounds like a nice way to say a spot fest.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get the hell away from that and move it along. So next up, we had what I thought was a very what the fuck moment when we went to Kevin, oh my God, Kelly, backstage at the America Online chat room table, sitting between Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack.
What a crew.
Chainsaw had his chainsaw propped up on the table there in front of the computer. And Charlie, he didn't look very happy to be there, but Cactus looked like he was trying. And that's all I really have for that. So this was the first time that I noticed anybody saying that Shawn Michaels was not going to be part of that 8-man tag match later on in the evening.
I thought they mentioned it briefly at the very beginning, but I could be mistaken.
They very well may have, but I missed it, and this is where it's hit me.
Certainly didn't mention it before taking people's money.
No,
for the event.
Right. Right.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, that's the bulk of that. So that took us into our next match. The Godwins, Henry and Phineas, defeat the Quebecers, Jacques and Pierre, by pinfall in 11 minutes and 14 seconds. So believe it or not, I was actually interested going into this.
As an 18%er, you would be.
Hey,
Yeah.
we talked about it in that last episode. Henry and Pierre looked pretty good together, and
They did.
And given the pay-per-view format and Pierre's willingness to sacrifice his body for his art, I had hope. Can't quite say that for the crowd, though. They did not give a shit, it seemed like. Phineas, he looks to have gained weight. None of it's muscle mass. Phineas and Jacques here at the start were okay, but then Henry and Pierre got in there. They looked pretty good in the beginning of this match. Of course, we started talking about Arkansas, and of course, that naturally led to talk of Bill Clinton, and that led to the suggestion that Bill Clinton needed to be assassinated.
Oh, I think I missed that. Damn.
Yeah. What did the king say? Where's Lee Harvey Oswald when you need him? I think was his exact words. Yeah.
I wonder if he got a visit from the Secret Service for that comment. Damn.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it surprised me that he would go that far with it. But,
Vince, say it.
Yeah. Advocate for his murder, damn it. And so with that, it's where I really started to notice that the quality of commentary had decreased in this match, especially with the King, because the King kept on bringing up Taka Michinoku, kept on rehashing Jerry's Kid. JR was equally guilty with that. They wouldn't let that go in this match. I do like what the Quebecers are using for a finisher. It's like an assisted splash from Pierre over Jacques' shoulders. And even though they didn't win with it, I do like the look of it as a chain move, as a finisher. And that's all I've got. I ended up giving this 2 stars, mostly because I was interested going into it, which is more than I can say for the previous 2 matches. And the action was serviceable. So, yeah, that's it. Joe, what'd you think of this?
Well, I would have, if I was in the crowd, I would have done what everyone else did and gone to take a piss and get a beer during this match, because they were completely dead for this. This match just feels very outdated. This is the type of match where in this time period, you're thinking they're not quite peaking yet here. There's still some shit mixed in with all the good stuff they're doing. Yeah, this was a dud for me, dog.
Even with these big rugged hog farmers from the Ozarks. Bitters, Arkansas. Yeah, Joe, I'm more in your camp here. And it started off out of the gate. They stalled multiple times for the Quebecers to insult the Americans in the name of Canada. I'm sorry, guys. This storyline died with Bret Hart. It needs to stay there. Stop rehashing it. And Bartlett, I think you mentioned it last week, that we were afraid that the Henry-Pierre match would end up being better than the pay-per-view tag match. And unfortunately, I think that is exactly what happened here. Every time Phineas got in the ring with his fucking droopy arms, the match took a step down. And it's not just Phineas. Jacques is also the weak link of the Quebecers. The one thing I did get a laugh out of was Lawler on commentary says, the Godwins live so deep back in the woods, you have to pipe in sunlight. I thought that was a good line. But in the end, this was a match that was pretty boring and had zero heat. It was 2 heel tag teams fighting each other. So why would anyone give a shit? And I gave it a dud.
Yeah, I do agree that singles match last week was infinitely better than this was. So you do have me there. What Meltzer think of this?
Oh man, you're going to be surprised. -1.25 stars.
Whoa.
Wow.
He said
He did not like it.
if after a performance like this, the Quebecers are still major heroes and drawing cards in Montreal, then nothing will ever kill wrestling in that city.
Oh, man.
Wow. Spicy.
Woof.
Complete burial.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't know what it was. I was actually looking forward to that.
It was that 18% or blood pouring through you.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll just hang my head here as we move on. Doc Hendricks was backstage with the New Age Outlaws. Doc wanted to know who was going to replace Shawn Michaels. The Outlaws didn't know, and actually they cut a pretty great promo around that fact, talking about how if they're not going to get respect as champions, they may have to just go grab some for themselves. And I liked that. After a quick break for that I'm a Real Athlete commercial they like to throw into pay-per-views.
Did you notice they cut out Ahmed Johnson claiming that he played for the Dallas Cowboys? That's not in there anymore.
Well, good.
I wonder if someone was like, there's no proof to that.
Well, I'm glad they took it out of there. That was false
me too.
advertising.
Yeah.
So after that, we went into our next match. Bradshaw defeats Jeff Jarrett with Jim Cornette by disqualification in 8 minutes and 59 seconds in an NWA North American Heavyweight Championship match. So it should be noted that Francis and the Droopy Arm Express were with Jarrett coming down to the ring, but they got kicked out prior to the match start. And it's unfortunate that Bradshaw still has the Yosemite Sam look going on because he's coming out to that great heavy metal riff, and he could have a hell of an entrance if he didn't look so ridiculous. Case in point, he ended up whipping Jeff Jarrett with his assless chaps. How fucking dumb. And I say that with genuine frustration because the action in this match I thought looked good. Bradshaw looked like a badass. Jarrett looked polished. And this had the ingredients to be an excellent match, but the circumstances leading up to it were absolute shit and prevented it from being an excellent match. Like I said, the action, good enough, but then after the finish, the NWA came out, and that sucked just on its face. One good part of that was where Bradshaw got Cornette alone in the ring. Cornette had to bump for him. That was mildly entertaining. But of course, Wyndham and the Droopy Arm Express got involved, and things went even farther off the deep end when the Legion of Doom came out to help Bradshaw, and that got the loudest crowd reaction of the entire match, two people that weren't even in it. We've talked about the pros and cons of this whole NWA thing in past episodes, mostly cons. Those all remain for me, but in terms of just the match itself, I was feeling generous. I ended up giving this 2 stars because, like I said earlier, the pieces of the puzzle are there. Whenever they're not hampered by their bullshit, Bradshaw looks good. Jarrett looks good. It's this shit that's all over them from the angle that drags it down, and hopefully one of these days those puzzle pieces are going to get put together correctly. Ryan, what'd you think of this?
I thought it was a real shame. At the beginning, Bradshaw, he comes down the ramp looking more Yosemite Sam looking than ever. Looked ridiculous. He had on bigger, wider, assless chaps. His mustache was longer and bushier. He's looking like Paul Tuttle Sr. from the fucking Orange County Choppers at this point. And Bradshaw comes down with a bull rope, and I'm a little bit afraid that we're going to end up with another match that, of course, is going to be a bull rope match with the NWA. So I think we know this isn't done, but I was very, very glad to see that the ref ejected the rest of the NWA, including the 2 elderly gentlemen, the Droopy Arm Express.
Those elderly arms.
Yeah, but I did enjoy Bradshaw at the start of the match. He looked like a hard ass. He was overpowering Jarrett, and Jarrett was doing a good job of selling for Bradshaw as he tossed Jarrett from corner to corner like a fucking rag doll. And Bradshaw gave a double noggin knocker to Jeff Jarrett and Jim Cornette, so that got a hell of a pop out of me. And the fact that the NWA stayed out of it for the most part made this a pretty decent match, in my opinion. I like Bradshaw. I like Jeff Jarrett. The disqualification ending, so the titles don't change hands, that was a bit predictable. But unfortunately, LOD comes out at the end, and I guess they're now maybe going to have a feud with the NWA. So we're going to have the Dinosaurs LOD versus the I don't give a fuck NWA. That's going to really bring things up. But the action in the ring, I gave 2 stars too. I agree with you. I wasn't hating it.
I liked Bradshaw here again. I liked his work in this match, like you guys mentioned. There were a couple other things I enjoyed. I liked that we got the big however from Howard Finkel when he kicked all those fucking droopy-armed shitheads out of ringside. The double noggin knocker, I liked JR saying it was a meeting of the half-wits when that happened. But this is a dud for me, and it's because the Bradshaw stuff, like, Bradshaw looks great, but it's just too easy. Like, just make him not look like Yosemite Sam, and this would be so much better. So it's a dud for me.
Yeah. What'd Meltzer think of this?
He gave it half a star. He said the crowd was dead, and they are trying to make Bradshaw into Stan Hansen, which I'm not familiar with, but I know who he is, but I just don't know his work. It's probably the bull rope or whatever that made him think that.
In your research, have you noticed, like, what does Meltzer overall think of this whole NWA thing?
He doesn't have much to say about it, good or bad, to be honest, from what I've seen.
I was curious about that because, I mean, say whatever else you would say about Meltzer, he is a historian, a wrestling historian. So,
right. He's not living under a rock like the rest of us.
It wouldn't surprise me if he liked it because he knows all of these people or whatever.
Right.
Unlike us who don't give a fuck because we don't know any of them.
Right.
Right. It's very comfortable under my rock. All right, let's move it along. Michael Cole was backstage with Triple H in China. What a view. What a view this was.
Sir!
China looked great. She was just staring that death
Like
daggers into the camera.
Michael Cole's head like a grape.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. Just pop it like a fucking pimple.
Triple H's promo was pretty good. Michael Cole had asked about who was replacing Shawn Michaels in DX tonight, and Try, I guess, decided that this was going to be a handicap match because nobody is going to replace Shawn Michaels.
Little bait and switch from Try.
But that immediately got shot down by that pencil neck geek whenever Michael Cole said, well, the WWF will probably just appoint someone then. And Triple H had to backpedal on all of everything he just said and say, well, we don't care what happens. After that, Doc Hendricks was with the Nation of Domination, preparing for the War of Attrition, and I fucking loved this. So this is that scene that ends up turning into the gif of The Rock rolling his eyes.
Yep, very famous.
This was beautiful to watch. I fucking loved this. First of all, Farouk cut a hell of a promo there, but The Rock stole the show on that. The body language, the gestures, the facial expressions. This was fucking gold. And that took us into our next match. Ken Shamrock, Ahmed Johnson, Chains, 8-Ball, and Skull defeat the Nation of Domination, The Rock, Farouk, D'Lo, Kama, and Mark Henry by submission in 13 minutes and 46 seconds in the War of Attrition match. And so they were billing this as a War of Attrition match. And I didn't see or hear how it was any different than any other multi-man match. And the King even goes and baits JR and forces JR into explaining what attrition means. So JR says it means to be eliminated one at a time or to fall by the wayside one at a time. And in doing that, JR highlighted how this isn't going to be a war of attrition at all. And I loved commentary for that, pointing out the stupidity of that fucking name. whenever things got going, we had some close-ups of Chains on their entrance, and I was struck by the total lack of charisma coming out of him. It's so strange how somebody can be yelling and like trying to work up the crowd, and you can feel your personal apathy levels increasing.
And lack of face tattoos.
Oh yeah, that too. And the hair, the VO5 hot oil hair there. Brutta. I loved JR emphasizing that Mark Henry was the strongest drug-free athlete in the world.
That cannot be said about everybody else.
That was right before Ahmed Johnson almost broke Mark Henry's hip with a sloppy backbreaker, which would have put Mark Henry on fucking drugs to get over it. And it should go without saying that Ahmed wasn't selling shit in this. He looked terrible. I loved D'Lo Brown hitting the 5-star frog splash 3/4 of the way across the ring.
Ooh,
By God. And I gotta tell you guys, I popped a raging chub when JR went off putting over The Rock. He was listing qualifications, saying The Rock had been bred for success. Like, if he would have just ended that whole thing with blue chipper, I would have creamed my jeans. I loved it.
He's an arrogant blue chipper.
And that was the last thing that I really noted. I didn't have too much to add until we got to the clusterfuck in the ring. That was right before the finish, which was Shamrock tapping out The Rock with the ankle lock after a very nice combo going into that. No surprise that Shamrock and The Rock worked well together there. But the story kept going after the finish. After the winners left the ring, The Rock confronted Farouk, with The Rock selling that frustration like a future movie star. And Farouk had this look on his face like, is this clown fucking serious? The Rock shoved Farouk and then walked out. As the nation was left fighting in itself in the ring, Farouk ended up calling The Rock back to the ring to force the unified salute before they all left. So, guys, I'm going with 3 stars on this, and the only thing from the actual match itself that is figured into that star score was the finish. I loved seeing The Rock and Shamrock. That was great. The real points in that rating come from commentary and the ongoing storytelling prior to and after the match. I fucking love this angle between The Rock and Farouk. It just keeps getting better. Joe, what did you think of this match?
The match itself made me pretty soft. 8 guys in the ring at one point, too. And it was, but I guess because it was a war of attrition match, it was not a DQ when all 8 guys were in the ring at one point. Commentary still cannot legitimately tell the 2 Nazi brothers apart. Like, JR had no fucking clue which one was in the ring. Ahmed Johnson is terrible, and Ryan, can we please, I think we can cue up a round of applause. I think this might be his last match in the WWF.
I love that.
Yeah. 5 stars.
Just to let everyone know, we have a new sound bar, so we're gonna take advantage of it.
5 stars for that. But the match itself, I didn't really love. I do like. I have some of the same points you had, Bartlett. I liked that this continued that feud between Shamrock and The Rock. I think both of those guys came out of this looking pretty good.
Yeah.
And I loved how this Rock and Farouk battle went down because it just looked very realistic. It was almost like how you hear those stories about like football training camp, like 2 guys got in a fight. They got in a fight at training camp, but they're on the same team and their brothers broke it up. That's what this looked like to me because they made up after, but you could tell they still like wanted to kick each other's ass. So I really like how that went down. So I gave this 2 stars.
I'm going to start things off with just saying poor Kenny Shamrock and that he is saddled with this shit team because...
Drizzling.
Yeah, drizzling is really the word here. But at the start here, I really like JR putting over D'Lo Brown. He was really talking him up, and D'Lo, he's not going to become a headliner, but he's going to become a damn good mid-carder and someone I enjoy watching. So it was good to hear JR try and put him over the best he could. But there's really no redeeming qualities of the DOA. when Chains got in there with Kama, he does the exact same bounce off the rope, drop the arm onto Kama's body. He does it like 12 times. I thought I was watching a fucking video game. You like when someone finds that one move that they could keep on hitting before you. Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. It was pretty fucking bad, but I did also like commentary JR. He threw in that D'Lo Brown is a certified public accountant. He decided that we needed to know that little tidbit. I like that. And Bartlett, just like you, I popped my ass off when D'Lo landed that fucking almost corner to corner frog splash. I mean, that was amazing, especially because he's not a small guy.
No.
But when The Rock and Shamrock got in there, things really started to look good. And that's pretty much how the match went. If Shamrock wasn't in there for the one team, it looked pretty fucking terrible. But I did love seeing The Rock at this point. Obviously, earlier in the episode, we saw the famous roll his eyes thing. But outside of the outside persona, he's also really honed The Rock in-ring persona too. He's got all the mannerisms and his movements down. He is pretty much 99% at The Rock that we know and love. So that's cool to see. And the finish I thought was strong. Kenny getting the ankle lock in there and the way that The Rock sold it, all of that was good. And so was everything after. All of the action with the Nation and The Rock and Farouk and everything that happened there. Just, it was great acting, great storytelling, and it brought what I was probably going to give a dud to 1 star and brought it up to a 2-star solely for what happened after the match. So yeah, 2 stars when I'm giving it.
Yeah. What'd Meltzer think of this?
He gave it 2.25 stars. He said that it was fast-paced, all-action match that was somewhat unwieldy in spots.
Yeah, fair enough. For anybody out there that's wondering, the way that you tell the Nazi fuck brothers apart is that their poorly covered up SS tattoos are on opposite arms. I don't know which one's which. I don't know which one is Thing 1 and Thing 2 or Ron and Dawn Harris or whatever the fuck their real names are. So I couldn't tell you that, but that's how you tell them apart. So one has the SS tattoo on the right arm and the other one has the SS tattoo on the left. So
I'm guessing that's so they could stand shoulder to shoulder and everyone could still see both Nazi tattoos.
Probably.
Fucking
if I had to guess.
dickbags.
Or maybe they would stand on the other side and their Nazi tattoos would touch and they would become more powerful Nazis.
Nazi twin powers activate.
Yeah.
Rub them together a little bit and get a little tingle. Okay, let's move it along. Michael Cole was backstage with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the bottom line here is that Austin doesn't fucking care who's replacing Shawn Michaels, and that's it.
What a surprise.
We can't really expect much more.
The one thing I have to talk about, though, is that he was caught wearing a Smoking Skull polo shirt. So I don't know if this is a new office worker line that they're putting out, but I got a good laugh out of that.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't even notice that. That was followed by a retrospective on Vader and Kane's history as we went into our next match. Kane with Paul Bearer defeats Vader by pinfall in 10 minutes and 59 seconds. So I was interested going into this match, but that's more on Kane's part than Vader's, because what did we say? This is only the 3rd match that Kane has been in so far, right? He had
one against Mankind, and I think that's
Undertaker.
It.
No, he hasn't got. God damn it! That's the 2nd time I've done that.
Hasn't fought the Undertaker yet.
Fuck. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, I think that props my point up even more because this is only the 2nd match he's been in. Then shit. So in the first couple minutes of this match, I was actually made to think of something that Joe has said over the past couple weeks about how well Kane has embraced that slow-moving serial killer style. Like, to me, this match is what it would look like if a big, football player tried to beat Michael Myers in a fist fight. Like, if Michael Myers showed up to a teenager party and one of the linebackers there tried to fight him. That's what this felt like to me. For the most part, the most impressive moments were Vader's punches on Kane. Those looked and sounded great. I thought those came across as being pretty brutal. But unfortunately, a lot of the common problems with Vader remained throughout this. Vader's top rope moonsault Looked like it hurt Vader more than it hurt Kane. Looked like that he maybe landed on the old Master balls there. Vader couldn't even sell getting thrown into the fucking ring stairs. You'd think that would be easy to sell, but it didn't happen. And I lost a lot of my suspension of disbelief when the ref was somehow distracted enough to not notice Vader spraying the fire extinguisher in Kane's face. I guess the ref wasn't aware of either that extremely loud noise or the sudden enormous vapor cloud that filled the entire fucking ring.
Well, what do you think he is, a magician?
Well, he's got to pay attention to Paul Bearer. He might start some shit in the opposite corner over there.
Yeah,
you know?
Not to mention how enticing it is to just look at that beautiful face.
Like, what if it was a pyro malfunction? Like, they're all going to die because they're not paying attention to it. Anyway, Vader couldn't get Kane up into a good power bomb. Vader didn't help Kane much getting up into the choke slam, but Kane did manage to get a good tombstone out of the deal, which is what got Kane the pin and the win. After the match, Kane got an enormous crescent wrench that he then wrapped around Vader's fucking face. And by God, Vader should have been dead after that.
12 times in the last, 2 months.
And when I say enormous crescent wrench, I'm saying that this thing was damn near 2.5 feet long and looked like it weighed about 35 fucking pounds.
Yeah, it had to be at 20 pounds minimum.
Yeah, and I mean, he clocked him with it. There's no way that wasn't maybe a styrofoam or something wrench, because he railed Vader in the face with that thing. And I laughed my ass off at how slow the medics were in getting into the ring and taking Vader out of it. So I also thought it was funny how JR echoed my thoughts in comparing this to that dumpster thing a couple weeks ago. like getting smacked in the face with this wrench, that's definitely worse than getting dropped inside that dumpster. It's definitely anyway, guys, I wrote a 1 star all the way through this. Kane did well on balance against Vader's lazy ass work, but that finish with the wrench caving in Vader's face actually jumped this up to 2 stars for me. Ryan, what'd you have on this match?
To start things off, just like The Undertaker, Kane's entrance it gives you goosebumps. It's one of those memorable classic type entrances. His methodic march to the ring, bathed in the red light. It's just maybe not quite as great as The Undertaker's entrance, but man, it's pretty damn good. Sadly though, I don't know if having Vader go up against this monster was the right call. We're trying to put Kane over. I understand that. We're having him defeat another big guy. He's not up against someone half his size. This guy actually outweighs him. But Joe, I go back to what you were saying last week in that I wish this pay-per-view didn't exist, because I think this match is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. Why
do we need a mediocre match that Kane's involved in to build his run to WrestleMania against The Undertaker? If anything, it hurts the run. It doesn't help it. And if I'm being honest, I'm still just a little bit fucking ass-chapped from Wink Collins not getting chokeslammed last week. But it doesn't change the fact that this match should have never been booked. And there were aspects of this I liked, though. Kane, he's really starting to work on the Undertaker style. He's doing the sit-ups. We saw the flying clothesline off the top rope this time. That looked good. He's getting clotheslined, landing on his feet. All that's cool, but to me, I was sitting at the 1 star. Bartlett, very similar to you, sitting at 1 star until Kane grabbed the gimmick wrench and fucking murdered Vader. He fucking killed him.
Yeah.
And this is at least the 3rd time we've seen Vader get killed in recent times. He was hit in the head with a fucking ball-peen hammer. He was poisoned. Now a 20-pound fucking wrench swung by a 300-pound monster like a baseball bat at his head. He's fucking dead. And they played it off like that. He was immobilized. They wrapped his neck. They carried him out on a stretcher. They said Sergeant Slaughter was collecting evidence. If I'm not mistaken, somebody needs to build this man a casket. Double wide! Double king! And JR and the King, they even come back after the match and say that Vader's orbital socket has been caved in. Jesus fucking Christ. They're really leaning into this one, and they're not pulling back like they did at the end of the Chainsaw Charlie Cactus Jack thing. So that kind of throws my theory out the window, what I was saying about that, because no, they're pretty much saying that he was fucking killed here. And everything that happened after the match gave at least another star to me. So I landed on the positive side of 2 stars.
Yeah, for me, I didn't really like this going into it. I just thought that I don't really want to see Kane as a beatable guy. I thought of a couple things during the match. I thought this would be better if Kane could go up against someone who is going to bump pretty hard, like a Shawn Michaels or a Mankind. And Dave Meltzer actually commented about that too, saying that Mankind was a much better match because Mankind is more conducive to working with a monster since he can take those kind of bumps.
Mm-hmm. And is willing to sell.
Yeah. Vader can't do that. Both of these guys are just clearly out of gas by the end of this, and they're just no-selling everything. Kane, to me, looks gassed and beatable, and that's not what you want headed into WrestleMania most likely against his brother, The Undertaker. But the wrench saved the whole fucking thing.
It did.
Like, that made Kane look like a killer and not just another wrestler. And that's what you have to do here to save this, and they did. I couldn't believe it. Like, the whole time I thought, you ruined it, damn it. But then they saved it. So I was just swimming in the dud zone, and I brought it up to 2 stars after the wrench.
And then we got, Kane in the kitchen with the wrench.
Yeah.
What'd Meltzer have to say about it?
He gave it 1 3/4 stars. He said Vader did about as good a job as you could do under the circumstances.
Does he mean as Vader can do?
Of him being Vader, yeah.
All right. Yeah, dead.
Motherfucker's dead.
Face caved in.
In his face.
Face caved in.
No way survived from that.
But they don't want to alarm anybody.
Especially after taking a hit with a ball-peen hammer just 2 months ago. I mean, the brain already has trauma. God damn it.
See, this would have been the appropriate time to say the doctors are working on him.
Yes.
All right. After that, we got a reminder that the last-minute replacement for Shawn Michaels is still a mystery. They were really hyping that throughout all of this, so I can't wait to see who it is, right? We're getting excited. Is it going to be somebody old, somebody new? The questions, they just keep coming.
It's like a wedding.
They're hyping this. That was followed by a very nice video package highlighting the build-up to the entire situation. It had a Michael Cole voiceover.
I was going to say one thing out of the Michael Cole voiceover that I wanted to point out was a term that he used during it, saying that Shawn Michaels is going to pick his successor. That kind of showed the hand as to where Shawn Michaels is going. And
Michael Cole is ruining this whole...
Yeah.
That word just really stuck out to me when he said that Shawn Michaels is picking his successor, telling us that he's gone with that term, isn't he?
Kind of. I mean, I didn't pick up on that at all, but yeah, you're right. Michael Cole evolved from Pencil Neck Geek to Wet Blanket in this pay-per-view.
Just ruin it. You ruined it, damn it.
Yeah. So after that, we went into our final match of the night. Steve Austin, Owen Hart, Cactus Jack, and Chainsaw Charlie defeat Triple H, the New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, and Savio Vega by pinfall in 17 minutes and 41 seconds in a non-sanctioned anything goes 8-man tag team match.
Whew.
The Outlaws were out first, and I did hear some people chanting along with the Road Dogg during the entrance.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's starting to catch on. That was pretty cool. Nobody was excited when Savio Vega got announced after Triple H. The crowd, the Outlaws, China, Triple H, nobody gave a shit that was Savio Vega coming out. And things were a clusterfuck right from the get-go. It didn't really seem like there was any kind of plan or rhyme or reason to this, and it took me a couple minutes of watching this to come up with the analogy that I was looking for. This was the WWF version of a demolition derby. There was just shit happening everywhere. The camera was...
That's a good term for it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, the camera was constantly cutting to different scenes of carnage. And to be sure, there was carnage everywhere. But none of those were any more or less savage than the last. And so, like, just like a demo derby, like, there's a lot of action and there's just car wrecks everywhere. But, there are car wrecks everywhere. And to an extent, that made this a little boring for me. If everything is a car crash, what makes one crash any more special or interesting than the other? What gets highlighted in all of that is when a car stalls out in the middle of things. And we had a couple examples of that. People just standing around, wondering what to do next. Everybody was guilty of that at one point or another. Surprisingly, though, things did end up with both teams in their corners. The King credited that to referee Earl Hebner restoring order. So common sense says that's a lie. But that does beg the question of how much authority any ref would have in a match that's not sanctioned and that is supposedly anything goes. Things just weren't stacking up there. I loved Stone Cold throwing a garbage can into Billy Gunn's face. That was perfect, especially the replay that they showed of it. And I went a while not taking any notes until we got to Savio wrapping Cactus Jack up in barbed wire. That was the first thing that really stood out to me as truly unique and intriguing in this sea of stuff. Ryan, I thought of you. Austin hit the double noggin knocker on the Outlaws, which was right before Austin got the pin after a stunner on the Road Dogg to finish this out. But then Chyna gets in the ring and goes face to face with Austin. After everything was all said and done, this was the most interesting part of this entire segment for me. This was with 4 minutes left in the pay-per-view, and Chyna was, like I said, nose to nose, chin to chin, eyeball to eyeball. I loved how the shove wasn't enough. Chyna shoved Austin. The trash talk wasn't enough. Getting up in Austin's face, that wasn't enough. But once Chyna gave Austin the double middle finger, it was like a cafeteria in high school. The whole crowd lit up with, oh. And that did bring Austin back in the ring to Chyna. And sure enough, Chyna ended up getting a stunner. And that more or less ended this. Austin worked the crowd a little bit longer. We got some replays and we faded to black. So, like I said in my notes there, as entertaining as this was, and it was, there also wasn't anything special about it to me. I was on 1 star up until Chyna got the stunner. That felt special. That was something out of the ordinary, so that bumped this up to 2 stars. Joe, what'd you think of this match?
Well, going into an 8-man non-sanctioned match, it's not that exciting.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a month before WrestleMania and you figure some of these guys are going to be taking it easy. That's why they're doing this 4-on-4 thing. But I have to say, for the New Age Outlaws, I'm really loving the thought that goes into their ring gear. This week they had Tennessee Oilers shirts in Houston, and that was just a great way to get heat with that Houston crowd.
If anyone that's a football fan, the Oilers around this time left Texas and went to Tennessee. So
right. And they're just always thinking of new things every week, and I really like that. It's attitude. And Savio as the replacement, I'm sorry, I want my money back. And it just made me think of like Tony Khan and all of his special announcements that he does that are all like fucking bullshit these days. So really terrible.
No bait and switch.
Absolutely horrible. Steve Austin has a couple of moves here that he's been utilizing ever since he injured his neck. He does that Thez press that always looks fantastic. A lot of the stuff he does is like just tailor-made for video games.
Oh, yeah.
And they were, eventually. They utilized a lot of his moves in the video games. When you would play as Austin, there were specific moves that only Steve Austin does. And I really enjoy watching some of that. Watching how he's evolving and changing his style is really cool to see. Something I don't like is Triple H doing his flip over the turnbuckle. He's doing his best Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair impression.
Yeah.
The more I see it, I just don't really like him doing it. I don't mind it when Shawn does it, but Triple H is just not that smooth, and he doesn't seem like the type of worker who would do that move anyway. So I'm not a big fan of that. I was hoping for a Shawn Michaels run-in here, but we didn't get it at all. That was strange. He's been on TV the past several weeks. I know he's injured, but I was expecting something, and we didn't get anything. But this stuff with China at the end is just beautiful. Really, the way they milked it, the crowd was just, they wanted it to happen real bad, and they eventually got it with China getting the stunner. It even looked on the replay like you could see China laying on the mat. It almost looked like she was holding back a smile, like she knew that fucking reaction, that they just killed it that night. Yeah, rest in peace, China. That was a beautiful spot there. I gave it 2 stars.
I also loved Bartlett. I know you're not really in the football, but I loved Road Dogg and Badass coming out here, busting on Texas about the Oilers, especially the line about that the Oilers have moved into the real South. That was pretty funny, I thought. And Road Dogg, he's pretty close to the full-on DX entrance now, which was kind of cool to see. Sorry, Savio, we talk you up here on the podcast pretty often, but if I paid for this pay-per-view, especially if I paid to walk into the fucking arena, I've been sold a card that Shawn Michaels is in the headliner match, and he's been replaced by Savio Vega. And again, no offense to him, because really, there's no one that could have replaced Shawn. It's not just Savio. Those are pretty big shoes to fill, but it's disappointing nevertheless, especially if you forked over the money.
Yeah, the only thing that maybe could have is if they were going to bring in somebody who was completely new.
Right.
Who was not already
That would have
there.
been about the only thing, some big name that they're bringing back or something. But I guess to make up for Shawn Michaels not being there, they make this a non-sanctioned or basically a no DQ match. And I do think that helped a bit because we had, people just beating the shit out of each other with foreign objects. After the first few minutes, we had broken tables, mangled chairs, and garbage cans scattered everywhere. I also liked Chainsaw. He took about a dozen trash can hits to the head from Hunter, and each time he's just sitting there putting the dukes up like it didn't faze him. Just fucking madman funk. I loved seeing that. I thought that worked for me. And if we're going to be honest here, everyone involved is damn good wrestlers. Most of them are fucking legends. I think, looking at the list here, every single one of them is in the Hall of Fame, aren't they?
Yeah, Triple H. Well, isn't. But,
yeah.
He's not going to put himself in. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure we have all Hall of Famers here, and to me was a pretty entertaining, although a bit of a clusterfuck match, and a pretty good ending. Especially the scene of Cactus crawling on all fours, wrapped in barbed wire. The barbed wire pulling at his hair as he tries to tag Austin in. That was an awesome visual. Austin comes in and the crowd just fucking goes on fire. He hits everyone with stunners, gets the victory. And then cherry on the top was the ending with Chyna, who I have to say, she looked amazing when she came in. This outfit she had on this week was really good. And then getting Stone Cold to finally stun her and getting that pop out of the crowd was, I don't think, any better way to end this match. And to me, I was entertained. If Shawn Michaels was here, maybe it would have been a little bit higher, but I gave it 3 stars. I liked it.
What did Meltzer think of it?
He didn't have much to say, but he gave it 3.5 stars. He said it was a wild brawl. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, as I said, we faded to black, so we need to discuss the most important question of all. At a premium price of $29.95, did you get your money's worth? Ryan, why don't you take that first?
Even though I enjoyed this final match, I thought it was pretty entertaining. Everything else was fucking mediocre. Duds, 1s and 2 stars, fucking left and right. Maybe at a discounted rate, I could have said okay, but no. At full rate, I have to say I did not get my money's worth, and I would have been very happy that I had the cheater box growing up with this one.
Yeah, this is one of the easiest no's that I've had in a very long time. I don't like the fact that this pay-per-view exists in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, especially this year, because I feel like, and maybe it's a little unfair, but this year's WrestleMania has the best, most exciting build-up that we've had in quite a few years.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of hurts an event like this a little bit if you're going to have those guys on the card like Stone Cold Steve Austin. So yeah, it's definitely a no for me.
So this actually ended up being just a teensy bit tough for me because I only had one dud, and everything else here was mostly serviceable. None of it was great, but in the end, I did end up saying no. And just like you, Ryan, like I think if this were still at like maybe $14 or even like that $19 price point, I would have been a little more comfortable saying yes. But really, in the end, to me, this wasn't much more than just an uncensored double-length Raw.
Yeah.
That's really what it felt like, complete with bait and switch. So yeah. Joe, what kind of numbers were in the Observer on this?
Well, I think the readers of the Observer agreed with us for the most part. It was 25.2% thumbs up, 58.5% thumbs down, and the rest in the middle. The best match was voted as that 8-man tag team match main event. And the worst match was voted as the Godwins versus the Quebecers. Dave Meltzer didn't have much to say about this event. He did give an update on Shawn Michaels, reporting that he has 2 herniated discs in his back. So we obviously know how that shakes out. But at this point, it doesn't sound like they're real sure about what's going on with Shawn Michaels from the dirt sheets. So that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most unholy Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on February 16th, 1998, with matches featuring Sniper, the Rock and Roll Express, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.